Pandemic-era immigration restrictions known as Title 42 are set to end this week. U.S. officials predict up to 10,000 people a day will soon try to cross the U.S. Mexico border. So Ed O'Keefe is at the White House with more on all of this. Ed, good morning.
Anne-Marie, good to see you. Happy Monday. The Department of Homeland Security insists it is ready for the end of Title 42 with plans to send 1,500 U.S. troops down in support roles and plans to roll out new asylum regulations this week. But state and local officials in border cities and across the country that are taking in migrants say they may not have the resources they need.
I think we're going to see larger numbers at first. It's going to take our plan a while to really take hold.
Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas asking for patience as officials are planning to deal with the increased number of border crossers expected after Title 42 comes to an end on Thursday.
We've been preparing for this for quite some time.
Among other things, DHS is increasing the number of flights carrying migrants back to their home countries. And those 1,500 military troops that start arriving at the border Wednesday will serve in support roles, so Customs and Border Patrol agents can keep focused on processing those trying to enter the U.S. But Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott says it's not enough.
We need 15,000 or 150,000 to secure the border because of the open border policies of the Biden administration.
Arizona's independent Senator Kyrsten Sinema has introduced a bipartisan bill that would keep operations similar to Title 42 in place for 2 more years. It would give Washington time to sort out tricky issues like border security, work visas, and migrant processing.
It will be a humanitarian crisis because we are not prepared.
But Mayorkas dismisses that proposal.
What we need is our system fixed, not this Band-Aid solution.
As Washington fights over what to do, border cities are bearing the brunt. The mayor of Laredo, Texas, says his city doesn't have the money needed to help care for the number of people expected to cross soon.
Thousands of people, it's going to be very devastating. So that is our concern right now.
Now, DHS plans to expand appointments for asylum seekers on a mobile app they've developed for people to log in and try to get an appointment to have their case heard. But people watching us may remember a recent 60 Minutes report that pretty vividly exposed the frustrations a lot of these asylum seekers have as they wait over in Mexico to get an appointment. And then, of course, once they do, it can take a while for that appointment to be held and for a decision to be made, which just prolongs the process for those sitting across the border trying to come to the United States, Anne-Marie.
So, we've got these extra troops heading to the border. Is the expectation that there will be a particular surge right now because Title 42 is going away, and then the numbers will go back down to a high? I mean, it's sort of an oxymoron, but back down? Or is the expectation that these numbers will remain high, and has the White House committed any additional resources to some of these border locations to deal with that should it happen?
Well, the 1,500 U.S. troops are designed to help alleviate some of the federal work that needs to be done in those areas. Those border communities would say they need more support from the federal government, from the state governments, to properly absorb the crowds of people that are crossing every single day. The expectation is now you're going to see about 10,000 people a day come across, at least legally in a processed way. As of last week, I believe it was about 8,600 roughly that Customs and Border Protection was processing on a daily basis. So you can already see they're going to be a bit overwhelmed from what they anticipate. You got a few things going on. You have people who've been waiting in Mexico to cross over since the pandemic began in places like Juarez. You have seen, and this is what Homeland Security officials especially expect, thousands, if not tens of thousands, coming from as far away as Venezuela, crossing through Central America, up into Mexico, trying to escape the political instability and economic calamity in that country. You're seeing them come from Colombia, from Panama. They cross Cuba over to Central America, make the way up as well. So it's no longer just Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. It's a hemisphere-wide issue now, which is why you've also seen the administration start making plans to set up what they call processing centers in Colombia and Guatemala, probably in other countries as well, where they're going to encourage people to go instead to have their cases heard, especially if it's an asylum case, and either get admittance into the United States or potentially Canada or even Spain, which are all partnering together to try to sort this out, knowing that there is a big influx coming.
Listen, while we have you here, I got a few other topics I want to ask you about. Of course, the looming debt ceiling issue, crisis, whatever you want to call it. Biden is expected to meet with congressional lawmakers tomorrow to discuss this. Is this going to be a bipartisan group? And if it is, do they have a starting point? Do they at least have sort of a square of common of commonality that they can start this conversation?
The only commonality is that they know they got to fix the problem, but there's no agreement yet on how exactly to do so. Remember, the president was saying for the first several weeks of the year, show me your budget, I'll show you mine. He showed his. The House Republicans have now passed a plan that would include raising the debt limit, but also cutting hundreds of billions of dollars in spending. The White House, congressional Democrats say that's a non-starter. There are a growing number of Democrats, however, saying the president's got to come off this idea that you're getting a clean debt limit agreement because we have divided government. There's got to be some compromise. Republicans also are going to have to come off their initial plans to cut hundreds of billions of dollars in spending and extract some kind of concession from the president. He will host House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, the Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, and the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, the big four. The hope is that they can at least show up here and say, look, we've agreed to disagree. We've got to sort this out as much as possible. One of the problems is the clock's running out on time that Congress is scheduled to spend here in Washington in May, ahead of that June 1st, what they call X date, or when money's going to start running out. So let's see if they expand the calendar. Thank you for throwing that up there. Let's see if they agree to meet again, or if everyone just goes back to their corners and keeps pointing fingers. Either way, of course, market analysts, economists are concerned that if for the first time the United States defaults on its debt, it could have wide-ranging global economic ramifications.
Yeah, and not a good look for the sitting president, which I'm sure is something that, you know, he's thinking about, seeing as he is going to be running for re-election. He's already started. ABC and the Washington Post have put out new polling showing that his approval rating has hit an all-time low. Does that make a difference in terms of how the party feels about him, as you know, and supporting him as the front runner for re-election?
Well, look, most Democrats, when it comes to how are we going to do in elections, are professional pearl clutchers to begin with. So yes, this will bring pause to many of them. But the White House will say a few things about this. First of all, the sampling of people they asked is a little different than many other polls. Most of these big polls asked registered voters or likely voters. This asked a group called voting age adults, which means it's anyone over the age of 18. They may not even be registered. So you're getting potentially a more pessimistic view of the president, is what White House aides, what Democrats will argue. That's fair. And so this may be what pollsters call an outlier, or one that's further off the norms, which right now put the president's approval rating in roughly the low to mid 40s at best. But a low 36%, not a good look. The other thing to keep in mind, we've got more than 500 days until Election Day 2024. This White House especially knows the score is taken on just one day and one day only, and that is Election Day. So they're building towards that. If anything, they might hope that this scares Democrats into reminding them that the possibility of a Donald Trump presidency again is real, or that even a Ron DeSantis presidency is real, because both of them poll better than the president in a head-to-head matchup in this survey. But otherwise, they'd say we got plenty of time.
Interesting. Ed O'Keefe, thank you.
Take care.